Welcome back to NUICfootball.com. I am your host, Kyle Kampmeyer, as we look forward into Week 4. Last week, we had a couple games that really stood out to us. First off, in the 8-man ranks, the game of the week between Milledgeville and Polo went to Milledgeville in a landslide. The Missiles wasted no time taking a 14-0 lead, and when Polo struck back to close the gap to 14-8, the Missiles took off to extend their lead in the third quarter to 44-8 before walking away winners with a 58-22 score. Du-Pec showed the rest of the NUIC that it is indeed a player for a conference title. They waxed the Dakota team that was coming off a tight loss to Forreston, 47-0. Cooper Hoffman had full control in this game, accounting for 5 touchdowns on the night. River Ridge took down Orangeville in 8-man action in a hard-fought game on a field goal in the waning seconds. It was a much-needed win for the Cats in order for them to look forward to a potential opportunity at the playoffs as well. In another matchup, the Steamers hosted EPC in a must-win game, and they fought hard to earn a 14-6 win to give them their first win of the year. EPC finds themselves in a tough spot entering Week 4, 0-3. Moving into Week 4, we have a couple big games with playoff intentions on the line. Fulton travels to Stockton, where both teams enter this game 1-2. The victor will put themselves in better shape for the playoffs, but Fulton is the team most desperate for a win in this matchup. Polo hits the road for a much-anticipated matchup with number 3 ranked Ridgewood. These two teams met in the quarterfinals a year ago, and both showed they could be potential contenders for state this year. After being throttled by Milledgeville, the Marcos have a point to get back on track. The Spartans want to show the state that they are ready for the big lights. We will cover these games and more coming up next.
This NUICfootball.com production is powered by Lemon's Ambulance Service in Galena, Illinois. We always plan for the expected, but sometimes we need to plan for the unexpected. Lemon's has been serving Stevenson and Joe Daviess counties since 1869. Call someone you can trust in your time of need. Call Lemon's Ambulance Service. Rose Bowman and the Choice Realty team understand that buying or selling real estate is among the most important financial transactions of your life. They are dedicated to providing personal and thorough service with a sharp focus on their clients' needs. Their licensed staff looks forward to assisting you in any of the following areas: residential, condominiums, new construction, land, farms, commercial, investment, or leasing. Choice Realty is locally owned and operated with offices in Freeport, Galena, and the Galena territories. So when it's time to buy or sell, give Rose Bowman a call at 630-697-2480.
We're going to start an 8-man, and the first game we are going to talk about is Quest Charter at Amboy. Quest Charter enters this game with a 0-3 record, while Amboy will enter this game perfect at 3-0. This is the first time these two teams have met. Last week, Quest lost to St. Anne 50-6, and Amboy beat number 10 Martinsville 60-8. Looking at this game, there's not a whole lot to really talk about. Quest obviously being a newer team to the 8-man ranks, haven't really played a full season yet in 8-man football. Amboy, the preseason number 1, still currently number 1 ranked team in state, will enter this game as a 79-point favorite. Led by Landon Welcho, Quinn Luffelman, Brennan Blaine, and Eddie Jones, the Clippers have continued to put up big numbers quickly while dominating opponents, including what we thought would be somewhat of a first test of the season with number 10 ranked Martinsville, but they walked out of that game with a 60-8 win. Good things for the Clippers will tend to move them to 4-0 this week, as they are expected to win this one big. And then we have a much-awaited matchup for them coming in Week 5 when they travel to Ridgewood. Pick the Clippers in this one. They're going to go away big. Game number 2 on the 8-man front gives us River Ridge at Blue Ridge. River Ridge will come in with a 1-2 record as they beat Orangeville 43-40 last week, while Blue Ridge is going to come in with a 2-1 mark on the season after they beat Metro East Lutheran 52-14. When you take a look at these two teams, Blue Ridge will enter this game as a 3-point favorite. So really, this is a big game for River Ridge in order for them to stay in the playoff hunt. It's definitely a much-needed game that they need to win. So far, they've had some big performances from Damon Dittmar. Last week, threw for 143 yards and 2 touchdowns, added 110 yards rushing with a touchdown as well. Joe Winter was a benefit of Dittmar's passing game as he caught 99 yards and a touchdown. Defensively, the Wildcats were led by Brian Appleby with 13 tackles and Seth Nicholas with 11 tackles. He also added 52 yards rushing in the game. But what we need to see River Ridge do here is they have to come out. They have to be able to be physical up front from the get-go in order to control the tempo of this game. If they can do that, they have a very good opportunity to come away with the victory on the road. At the same time, it's going to set them up for better things moving forward as they will enter week 5 with the 2-2 mark and higher probability of reaching the playoffs, which is their end goal at the end of the season. In this one, my pick to win are the Wildcats. Our third 8-man game is going to show us Orangeville at Milledgeville. Orangeville will come in with a 1-2 record. Milledgeville is perfect at 3-0 as they move up to number 2 in the state rankings after beating Polo last week 58-22. Orangeville lost to River Ridge 43-40. Last year, these two teams met back in week 1 where Milledgeville walked away with a 46-8 win. 3 weeks ago, Milledgeville played River Ridge to a 48-0 win as well. As you can see, this game is going to be heavily in favor of the Missiles. Milledgeville is going to enter this game as 53-point favorites. Last week was a big win for the Missiles. Connor and I had 153 yards passing with 3 touchdowns, added another 83 yards on the ground with a touchdown. Micah Tom Smith had probably the best game I've ever seen him play, with 79 yards rushing, 48 yards receiving, and 3 touchdowns. Connor Johnson chipped in with 103 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns, and Carter Livingood also had 104 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns on just 2 receptions. Taking a look at the offensive and defensive line for the Missiles, Dalton Adamic, Jacob Promenschenkel, and Wyatt Miners were all big-time leaders on the front of that Milledgeville team that catapulted the Missiles to that big win. Orangeville, on the other hand, they have Blake Fulgate, they have Cody Worth. They have to be able to get things moving, hopefully to stymie the Missiles' offense. But based off of what we've seen already, the physicality of the Missiles is going to be very prevalent on the front line. The athleticism of the Missiles is going to be big in favor of Milledgeville as well. This one, you have to play the games, but from an analyst standpoint, Milledgeville is going to walk away with this one easy.
Our 8-man game of the week is brought to you by Best Realty. Best Realty has been helping Northern Illinois tackle their real estate needs since 1990. Whether you're buying or selling, in the market for residential, commercial, or acreage, they'll help you get the best deal. Call the Best Realty team at 815-248-3408 or visit them online at bestrealtyproperties.com.
Our Best Realty 8-man game of the week is going to feature Polo at Ridgewood. Polo enters this game with a 2-1 record after they lost to Milledgeville last week 58-22, and Ridgewood will enter perfect at 3-0 after they beat Unity Christian 40-16. Last year, these two teams met in the quarterfinals where Polo walked away victorious 38-32. Coming into this week's matchup, Ridgewood is the favorite by 14 points. So it'll be interesting to see how this game transpires. Polo dropping in the rankings from number 2 to number 4. Ridgewood moves up to number 3 as well. So we have a big game here in the 8-man ranks with 2 of the top-ranked teams in the state. The Spartans are led by Riley Couture, Roy Sandberg and Preston Moriarty. They're going to have a good benefit of mix, run, and pass as they're going to look to do different things offensively to move the ball downfield and take advantage of the defense that they see. Polo, on the other hand, we've seen them pretty much be a run-powered team, which we've seen in the past. A Wildcat-style offense with Brock Solto leading the charge. Last week against Milledgeville, he had 100 yards rushing. He had 37 yards passing. He had 64 yards receiving. And he accounted for all 3 touchdowns that the Marcos scored. Noah Dewey added 109 yards receiving with a touchdown. And Carter Murdian had 138 yards passing with a touchdown pass in there as well. Polo is going to have to find ways to mix it up a little bit. I believe that some of their deficiencies last week against Milledgeville was the state of predictability that led Milledgeville to basically be able to read exactly what Polo was going to do when and where. They're going to have to work on a few of those things in order to change it up a little bit to give Ridgewood a different look, a different feel, and then exploit them. At the same time, they're going to have to get that defensive line pass rush in order to stymie what Ridgewood is going to want to do. They're going to be somewhat familiar with each other, having played each other last year in the playoffs as well, so they're going to know the tricks and whatnot of what they need to do. I would say for the Marcos, you got to get Solto the ball any way possible, whether it be through the run game, through the pass game. But you got to get him the ball in different ways rather than just direct snap to him, in my opinion. I'm not a coach. I'm not going to sit here and tell you how to coach. But, looking at what the Marcos can do and knowing that Brock Solto is the player that he is, you definitely got to get him the ball. There's no questions about that. You just got to find a different way of doing it in order to give yourself a better opportunity against better competition. Granted, the Wildcat offense does give them a bit of different looks and able to do different things. Clearly, we've been able to see Solto pass out of it as well. He does have a good arm, so that can kind of keep the defense honest at the same time. Noah Dewey needs to get more in the action on the passing side of things, and it'd be cool to see Dilo Fernandez be able to get things going. Defensively, he's been a big star for the Marcos as well, being able to do different things to create havoc on the defensive line. And they're going to need that again in this one. Ridgewood's the favorite. And in this game, Ridgewood is my pick to win. I think it's going to be a closer game than the 14-point spread. But I think that Ridgewood is going to win by a touchdown.
This portion of our broadcast is brought to you by Diedrich Epoxy Flooring. Serving Northern Illinois and Southern Wisconsin, Diedrich Epoxy is the source for all of your epoxy needs. Give Diedrich Epoxy Flooring a call today at 815-239-1158 for your free estimate.
We are going to move over onto the 11-man side, and the first game we have is Dakota at Lena Winslow. The Indians will enter this game with a 1-2 record after they lost to Du-Pec last week 47-0, and Lena Winslow enters the game ranked number 1 in state, perfect at 3-0 as they look for their 23rd consecutive win, which would match Dakota's 23-win streak that they had from 2007 to 2008. Last week, Lena Winslow beat Stockton 48-20. These two teams last met in week 2 last year, where Lena Winslow won 48-24. Big game there. It was, if I remember correctly, it was 41-8 at halftime, so the game was really further apart than what the final score would lead you to believe. However, when you take a look at what Lena Winslow has, the Indians are going to have to find a way to stop Gage Dunker. Last week, he ran for 190 yards and 3 touchdowns. Coburn Lynch entered his way into the run game. He had 90 yards rushing with the touchdown. But really, it comes down to stopping Dunker. He's got to be the focal point for the Indians to have success against the Panthers, you have to shut down Dunker and force Leamon to do something with another back. You have to force somebody else to beat you. And it's no tall task, or it's no easy task. Lena Winslow has a line that is averaging about 250 pounds across the front, so they're a big line, they're a strong line, and Dakota's going to have to do what they can against these guys. Dakota themselves, no slouch across the front line either, but the definite strength is in favor of Lena Winslow in this game. Unfortunately, for the Indians, being 32-point underdogs, everybody's going to be looking at Leamon as the favorite, which they are, ranked number 1, 3-time defending state champs, and the Panthers are going to be my pick to win. Our next game features the Route 72 showdown as EPC will travel to Forreston. The Wildcats come in at 0-3, while Forreston enters ranked number 2 in state with a perfect 3-0 mark. Last year, Forreston won this game in Week 3, 34-21. Last week, EPC lost a thriller to Fulton 14-6, and Forreston beat Galena 30-16 to stay perfect on the year. Forreston's going to enter this game as a 28-point favorite. Led by Owen Mulder last week, rushed for 86 yards and 2 touchdowns. Caleb Sanders ran for 69 yards and a touchdown. Dane Setterstrom added another 40 yards on the ground with a touchdown. On the other side of the ball, the Wildcats were led by Draven Zier, who had 72 yards and a touchdown. And then Will Burchett on the defensive side picked up 18 tackles, picking up where we felt he left off last season as one of the leading tacklers in the NUIC. This is going to be a tough game for the Wildcats, but I don't think it's necessarily a game that they can not come out with an upset per se. We saw them play tough with Fulton just a week ago. We saw where Fulton had opportunities to beat Forreston back in Week 1. Which, if you're EPC, you got to take a look at what you did against Fulton and what Fulton and Forreston did against each other and kind of go off of what those two game plans are to try to stop what the Forreston rushing attack is going to do. You already know what Forreston does. They're going to run that double wing offense. They're going to run that double lead. They're going to run the double dive. They're going to run counters. They're going to run belly. You got to find out which one they're going with. You got to stay home and play fundamental sound defense. You have to read your keys, and you have to play your marks. If you do that, you give yourselves an opportunity. The problem with EPC is the inexperience on the offensive side of the ball. They have to be able to move the ball, be able to get the ball in the hands of their playmakers, and hope for good things to happen. It's no easy task here as they're playing in Forreston. Forreston's a hard place to win a football game. The Cardinals have had a lot of success over the past 14 years playing at home. And in all honesty, while this is a big game for EPC, they have to come out with a victory here to help keep their playoff hopes alive. Forreston is the clear-cut favorite, and they're going to be my pick to win. Our next game gives us an interesting matchup as Galena will travel to Michigan to play Saranac. The Redskins are 2-1 on the year, while Galena enters this game at 1-2. Last week, Galena lost 30-16 to Forreston, while Saranac won 40-6 over their Central Michigan Conference foe, Dansville. The Redskins were 2-7 last year in the Central Michigan Conference. They play in Division 8, which is Michigan's division similar to our Class 1A, and they're currently rated 29th in the Division 8 Michigan standings. With that, Galena is going to enter this game as a 24-point favorite. Right now, taking a look at how Galena has fared We heard some people discussing last week's game with Forreston, where they felt that Galena could have won had they not made mistakes. Galena was forced into 7 fumbles by the Cardinals, while Forreston was able to recover 3 of those fumbles as well to be able to walk out with that win. There was a lot of people that had made chatter on our Facebook page and other places stating that if they cleaned up their play, they could have won that game. Well, anytime that you go into a game and you don't make mistakes, you give yourself a better opportunity to win that game. There's no doubt about that. But for Galena, their Roman Romer had 129 yards passing last week with the touchdown. That touchdown pass was to Josh McNett for 28 yards. Jack Reese accounted for 32 yards rushing. Owen Hafel also had 48 yards receiving. With that, the Pirates need to get Romer going offensively at quarterback, but they also have to get their run game going with Miles Schumacher and Jack Reese. If they can do that and then mix in the playmaking skills with Hafel and get McNett the ball and a couple others in that Galena Pirate offense, they're going to have good opportunities to get their 3rd win of the year. And by doing so, they're going to propel themselves into an opportunity to get back to the playoffs and surpass my own expectations of what I had for Galena in the preseason. So it's definitely good things for Galena going right now. They have the offense that can be able to put points on the board. They've shown that they can be resilient against tough competition, such as Forreston. And, perhaps if they do clean up some of those mistakes and fumbles and turnovers, they can put themselves in a better situation to play at a higher level and up to the state ranking that they have earned so far early in the season. So, big road game here for Galena. But the Pirates are going to be our pick to win this one with the big lead that they have. Our next NUIC 11-man matchup is Du-Pec at West Carroll. The Rivermen enter this game 3-0, while West Carroll comes in 0-3. Last week, Du-Pec beat Dakota 47-0, and West Carroll went on the road where they lost to Aurora Central Catholic 42-20. Last year, these two teams played in Week 1 where Du-Pec rolled 53-6. And the Rivermen are going to enter this game as a 58-point favorite over West Carroll. Du-Pec has been led by Cooper Hoffman so far early in the season. Last week, he threw for 131 yards and 3 touchdowns. He had 99 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. Jalen Nowd picked up some carries, 45 yards rushing. He had 24 yards receiving with a touchdown. Also had 74 punt return yards and returned 1 of his 3 punts for a touchdown. Defensively, he added 5 tackles as well. Drew Williams picked up another good game with 55 yards receiving and a touchdown on the day. So, West Carroll's been struggling out of the gates kind of as expected. Still a pretty young team. Don't really match up well with much of what we see in the NUIC. Du-Pec, on the other hand, definitely raised their expectations. I know last week I put out there that, right now we don't know if Du-Pec can compete with the top 10 in Class 3A. And, we had them on upset alert in the game of the week with Dakota. But through all of that, they kind of came out and they made a big statement with that 47-0 win. They got some time to build some momentum up heading into the last 4 weeks of the season. They got West Carroll this week. With that, they're going to be our pick to win this game to move to 4-0. Then they can go into Week 5, and then the much-anticipated matchup in Week 6 with Leamon Winslow lies ahead for the Rivermen. But this game will be the Rivermen, and it will be quick and easy.
Our 11-man game of the week is brought to you by Best Realty. Best Realty has been helping Northern Illinois tackle their real estate needs since 1990. Whether you're buying or selling, in the market for residential, commercial, or acreage, they'll help you get the best deal. Call the Best Realty team at 815-248-3408 or visit them online at bestrealtyproperties.com.
Our Best Realty 11-man game of the week features Fulton at Stockton. Fulton will enter this game at 1-2. And Stockton also will enter this game at 1-2. Last week, Fulton picked up their first win of the year with a 14-6 win over EPC, and Stockton lost to Winslow 48-20. Last year, these two teams met in Week 6, where the Steamers won 44-6. This definitely is a Week 4 game that neither team can truly afford to lose, but it's definitely a must-win game for Fulton, as they still have Du-Pec and Knoxville coming up on schedule. Both teams are ranked in their respective classifications. Du-Pec ranked in Class 3A, Knoxville ranked in Class 2A. Fulton will enter this game as a 10-point favorite on the road, and they're going to be led by the playmaker, Dom Kramer. With that, in order for Fulton to find success in this game, they're going to have to match up on the line. They have to be able to be aggressive at the line of scrimmage. They're going to have to be able to match the intensity of Stockton as well. Stockton's already played two of the top teams in the state, in the conference, in Winslow and Du-Pec, so they've already gotten that taste of what it's like to play those teams. And with that, they need that line, both offensively and defensively, to come ready to go, because Stockton has already tasted that, and they're going to know what it takes. Now, obviously, we take a look at what Fulton's done. They played EPC, who had a tough loss to Galena. Fulton played Forreston, where they lost and had opportunities to win that game. And they've already played Winslow as well. So, with that, they both have had those big teams on schedule, so they know what to expect. And now it comes down to who's going to be ready to execute. Dom Kramer needs help, though. He's going to have to rely on Trevor Theismann and Balin Damoff in the receiving game in order to get the ball downfield. At the same time, they have to be able to get the run game going behind Skylar Crooks and A.J. Boardman. Fulton's going to have to be able to run off key and do different things in order to move the ball down the field. For Stockton, on their side of the ball, Brady Hass has been a big contributor so far on the year. Last week against Winslow, he had 76 yards receiving with a touchdown. Colby Tucker at quarterback had 115 yards passing and 2 touchdowns. He has shown us glimpses of what he can do as well. Now they have to be able to get their run game going with the run game of Tanner Guile and Carl Hubb. If they can kind of get that mix and pattern going, these two teams are really going to match up well with each other. Both have similar tendencies of what they want to do. And it's going to be a very intriguing game, to say the least. Fulton on the road, though, 10-point favorite. It's going to be tough. I have a feeling deep in my gut that Stockton's going to pull this one out in an upset.
Our NUICfootball.com state rankings are presented by Leading Edge Fundraising. If you need to raise funds for new uniforms, tournament expenses, equipment, or more, look no further. Brandon Sharp at Leading Edge makes it easy for you and your team to have a fun and competitive way to raise funds for your program. Give Brandon a call today at 563-514-1647. Leading Edge Fundraising, your premier fundraising company.
We're going to go through our NUICfootball.com state rankings, which are presented by Leading Edge. And we're going to start with 8-man. In our 8-man polls that we put out already this week, coming at number 1, remaining at number 1, are the Amboy Clippers at 3-0. Moving up to number 2 with their big win, as expected, are the Missiles of Milledgeville at 3-0. But I would like to make a point. This is the first time this year that Amboy did not receive all the first place votes. Milledgeville did receive 2 votes for that number 1 spot, so they are definitely closing in on the heels of the Clippers in that ranking. Ridgewood moves up to number 3 as the Spartans are 3-0. With the loss, the Marcos drop to number 4 at 2-1. Coming at number 5 is St. Thomas More. The Sabres are 3-0 on the season. Following at number 6 is South Beloit, who enters at 3-0. At number 7 are the Cyclones of West Prairie at 3-0. Moving up to number 8 is Milford Cisna Park, as they come in with a record of 2-1. At number 9 are the Blue Streaks of Martinsville, as they are 2-1 after their loss last week to Amboy. Coming in at number 10 are the Pawnee Indians, as they are 2-1. Other teams to receive votes were South Fork at 2-1, Flanagan Cornell Woodland at 1-2, and Bushnell Prairie City at 2-1. Moving over into Class 1A, remaining at number 1 is Lena Winslow at 3-0, followed by rival Forreston at number 2, also 3-0. Coming in at number 3 are the Mustangs of Morrison at 3-0, and at number 4 is the clear South favorite, Althoff Catholic at 3-0. Number 5 is Camp Point Central at 3-0, followed by their WIVC counterpart, Greenfield Northwestern at 3-0 at number 6. At number 7, after a big win over Chicago Hope Academy, Aurora Christian moves up to number 7 at 2-1. At number 8 are the Steamers of Fulton, as they enter 1-2. Number 9 is Newman Central Catholic, as they are 2-1, and rounding out our top 10 is Hope Academy. After they lost to Aurora Christian, they are now 2-1 on the year. Other teams to receive votes were Stark County at 3-0, Leroy at 3-0, Deer Creek Mackinac at 2-1, Galena at 2-1, KC Westfield at 3-0, and Anawan Weathersfield at 2-1. Moving over into Class 2A, not a lot of changes here. Remaining at number 1 are the Trojans of Moreau Forsyth at 3-0, followed by conference rival number 2, the Athens Warriors, also at 3-0. Coming at number 3 are the Fighting Irish of Seneca, as they are 3-0, and the Vikings of Tri-Valley are at number 4 at 3-0. Number 5 is Bloomington Central Catholic at 3-0, and at number 6 is Knoxville at 3-0. Moving their way into our top 10 for the first time this year are the Shelbyville Rams, as they come in at number 7 at 3-0. Pana is number 8 at 3-0. Johnston City is number 9 at 3-0. And at number 10 is Mater Dei at 2-1. Other teams to receive votes are Rockridge at 2-1, Farmington at 3-0. Auburn makes their way into our state rankings for the first time this year at 2-1. And the Hurricanes of Marion Central Catholic are at 1-2. Moving into Class 3A, once again, another familiar name at the top. Been at the top all year. The Byron Tigers, number 1, 3-0. Followed by number 2, Montini Catholic, 3-0, as they move up one spot from last week. Dropping down that spot is Williamsville, as they are 3-0. At number 4 is St. Joseph Ogden at 3-0. Number 5 is Princeton at 2-1. Number 6 is Tolona Unity at 2-1. Jumping up to number 7 are the Rivermen of Du-Pec, as they improve to 3-0. Coming at number 8 is Wilmington at 2-1. Number 9 is Stillman Valley at 2-1. And at number 10 are the Roxana Shells at 3-0. Other teams receiving votes for the first time this year in our rankings: DuQuoin is 3-0. Eureka is 2-1. Prairie Central is 1-2. And Olympia is 2-1. So that gives you a look at our NUICfootball.com state rankings as we enter week 4.
Our NUICfootball.com Players of the Week is sponsored by our friends at Benchwarmers. Each winner receives an extra large pizza and a dozen boneless wings. Just stop in to claim your prize. Located in Freeport at 2143 West Galena Avenue, Benchwarmers is a great place to gather with friends to watch the big game. For American pub food and fun at its finest, check out Benchwarmers. And make sure you try the cheese curds.
Our 8-man Benchwarmers Player of the Week goes to Milledgeville's Dalton Adamic. Dalton had 8 tackles with 1.5 sacks on the night. He was also on the offensive line that helped put up 433 yards of offense in Milledgeville's 58-22 win over previously number 2 ranked and rival, the Polo Marcos, in the Battle of the Blacktop, giving Milledgeville the trophy for the second year in a row. Congratulations, Dalton, on your Player of the Week honors. And our 11-man Player of the Week goes to Du-Pec's Jalen Naud. Naud ran for 45 yards. He had 24 yards receiving with a touchdown. He had 74 punt return yards with a touchdown. He recorded 5 tackles with 1 pass breakup on defense as well, as Du-Pec rolled 47-0 over Dakota in our 11-man Game of the Week last season. Congratulations, Jalen, on your performance. Week 4 is going to be pretty much ho-hum as we look forward to moving on into the next third of the season. But there are a couple of games that we definitely have our eyes on, with Fulton and Stockton really being at the top of that matchup. On the 8-man front, we have Polo traveling to Ridgewood at Cambridge to take on the Spartans in a big top 10 matchup there. There are some other games out there that clearly have some potential in them, with EPC and Forreston as a potential game that could see some things happen. They had some close run-ins in the past here as well. Being a big rivalry game, they're kind of games that you throw records out the window and kind of see things at a different perspective. So it'll be interesting to see how some of these games match up. We have a lot of games with a lot of big spreads in them as well. I expect those games to be blowout games. But, we're going to start moving forward to that midweek season. We're going to start seeing our playoff projections coming out very shortly as well. So there's a lot to look forward to, a lot of games still to go, but we're definitely starting to see some movement as we move into these next 3 weeks. We're going to start seeing the separation between the contenders and the pretenders. So these next 3 weeks are going to be very interesting as we start to see who's going to be playing for the playoff spots and who's going to be losing those opportunities to even get in. But it's still high school football. It's still a lot of fun. You still have your teams to root for. Get out to those games. Cheer on your teams. As always, root for the NUIC.